Is your computer muted?
It is not. Let me mute it now.
I think it should be.
Okay, cool.
I'll also mute it on my side.
Hello! Hi, friends! It's me, Sam Kevy. How's everyone's Tuesday? Uh, good, I hope. If you saw something earlier, please pretend that you didn't. And how do I sound? Is background music too loud? Am I too quiet? It's all good. Sounds good. Okay, cool. Well, I am here today to introduce my co-host for this creator-focused live stream, John, aka Ursus, our MapleStory World software engineer, who will be going into the MapleStory Worlds who will be going into MapleStory Worlds and demonstrating how to use the dialog package from our MapleStory Worlds GitHub for a cutscene. Okay, so before I let John take over, oh, you want more burgers? That's in a future live stream. So before I let John take over, I've got one event reminder. This month, we've got game hours where myself, CM Suki, and other Nexon employees hop into a specific world to play games with you all or against. And for this week, we'll be hopping into Raid Story that we featured on our stream a few weeks ago. Today we'll be there from 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. PDT. For the full schedule, I'll just drop !game hour into the chat for the link to our Discord post with all the dates and times for June and into the first week of July. And as a refresher, Raid Story. What is Raid Story? Raid Story is a fast-paced bullet hell world where 1 to 4 players team up to battle a series of challenging bosses. There are different classes to choose from and items you'll be able to collect as you get to higher stages. And Raid Story was developed through our Creators Workshop program. And to find the links to both to Raid Story and the rest of our Creators Workshop worlds, just drop !workshop worlds into the chat for the link. There's going to be a lot of commands that are going to be dropped into the chat during this live stream. Okay. And don't go see him, Cabby. It's okay. I'll be back at the end. And then I am going to hand it over to John in 3, 2, 1.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kavi. So today, we are going to be going over how to develop a cutscene. So actually, first, before I should reintroduce myself, my name is John Lee. I am a software engineer for MapleStory World. And today, we'll be going over cutscenes. So let's actually go over, quickly demo the cutscene that we're going to go over and learn how to create today. And then I'll go into the details of how this cutscene was made. Okay, so I am in this world, and I'm currently a maker. And we're in this palace, and there's this mysterious sword in the middle. And I'm going to press F to trigger my cutscene and begin the cutscene sequence. So there's this mysterious guy that doesn't want us to touch the sword. Who are you and how do you know my name? Never mind that, just don't touch the sword. And let's choose to poke it anyway. Okay, and then he kind of leaves with the "you've been warned." And he will disappear. So this whole sequence, when we trigger the cutscene, he will enter, he will move to a designated spot. We will trigger the dialogue sequence, which we're actually going to be utilizing one of our packages, which is the dialogue package, to actually run the dialogue system so we don't have to build that from scratch. So today, we're going to basically be implementing one of our packages from our GitHub repository, and I'll go over how to import that and utilize that in MapleStory Worlds to supplement your development and make your development process a little bit more faster. So Cool. So let's quickly go over the our GitHub repository. So in our GitHub main page, save this link. It's also in one of our patch notes. I forget the exact patch notes number, but we announced this package. I believe it was a 1.24 update. Please don't quote me on that. But we did announce this GitHub repository with a lot of different packages, and we also have a lot of we're constantly updating these packages so that you can develop a little bit faster and get a little bit of a head start when it comes to development, so you don't have to build some of these things from scratch. Of course, a lot of you will be talented enough to develop these from the scratch from your own, but this is kind of like a kickstarting point, hopefully. So with that, we have several packages. We have a GM message package. We have descriptions for each of these packages here in the README section down here. But a couple notable ones, GM message, where you can create like a global message across all of your servers. You can have quest and achievement systems. You have mail systems where you can send mail to people. Today we're going over the dialog package, where it kind of it has like a whole dialog system built in, and it's easy to utilize, easy to kind of modify, so you can use it for your own use case. We're going to actually download this and modify it just a little bit. We're not going to modify it a ton, but we'll go over how to import a package like this and utilize it in World today. So with that, to install a package, you can either just click on the download link next to the package description here. For example, the Dialog-Package, you can just click on the download button there, and it downloads what's called a mod package file. So for those of you that don't know what a mod package file is, you can actually create one yourself, but this is just a way to share code, share assets, share kind of development packages with other developers. So this isn't a special file that only we can create. You can create it yourself and share code if you'd like as well. So for example, if I wanted to export one of my folders out, I can select the folder, I can click export to package, I can select the different assets that I want to export, and I can click the export button, which will create the package file. So that's all a mod package is. We'll just download the mod package that we've created for you guys. And alternatively, you can also check out the code that goes into these packages as well before you download or clone the package. So here we have the dialog package, and we have the mod package over here, same as the download, but we also have the My Desk folder, which is the local workspace folder for this package. So inside of the My Desk of the dialog package, we have a utilities file. Inside of here, we just have a couple, basic helper functions. Inside of the dialog, we have two folders. So this will be the same across all of the package that you'll see in this repository. We have the core folder, which holds a lot of the core logic. You will likely not be touching this a lot. We will actually be modifying this just a little bit to work with our cutscene system here. But we also have a sample folder, which will basically allow you to test this right out of the box and see it working. So there's no, there is a little bit of a setup, but it's not a ton because we already have most of the stuff already set up for you. So the sample is just the sample of utilizing the dialog package. Okay, so again, you can either click on the download link here. You can also go down here and you can click download zip. And for those of you that are a little bit more tech savvy and understand source control, you can also just click the clone URL and clone it into your GitHub repository. And doing that will allow you to keep kind of keep track of changes that happen on the GitHub repository. I highly recommend you, if you don't know how to utilize source control, I do highly recommend it. This is an example of a clone. So down here, I can click clone repository and I can enter the URL. Upon doing so, you can see, for example, we have new changes that have been made to the GitHub repository, and I can click pull origin to apply the changes to my local repository. So with that being said, let's hop straight into our maker and learn how to implement this package, implement our dialog package. Okay, so we're again here in Maker. To import our package, we're going to click on this plus button, and we're going to click import from, and we're going to select import package. And then that will take us to the packages, that'll take us to our Explorer, where we can search for the packages. And we can see that we have the dialog package right here. And we're going to click on the mod package file, and we're going to click open. That will open this import package UI here. And we can select the different kind of scripts that we want. You can choose to only import the core folder and choose to implement it yourself. That'll be up to you. But for those of you that want to quickly test and see how this all works, I would recommend importing the entire folder in. So you can just click all and click on the import button. I'm not going to do so because there are some changes that I've made to this package, which I do not want to overwrite. But for you guys, it'll be just clicking on the import button to import the entire package. Okay, so doing so brings in our folders that we saw earlier. We have the core folder, we have the sample folder. Of course, we don't have the package file. But we also, so this is the most important part. We have a dialog README file, and every package that you import will also have this README file kind of packaged alongside any package that you import. And opening this, it will show you all of the different, or I guess it'll give you an overview of the package itself, how to utilize it, what are the installation steps, things like that. So this will be the most important part of utilizing the dialog package. So we have the UI path configuration, set the spawn paths for the dialog UI. So we have our press to show dialog that is going to be right here. And this will just trigger our dialog. So this is a logic file that will be triggered, that can be accessible across, is globally accessible. And when we click on the alpha 1, the number 1 key on your keyboard, it will start the dialog. And if we go into this definition, we can see that it is grabbing the scripts, and then it is going to start the dialog sequence based on the dialog ID. So here we can see the dialog ID is tutorial. And this tutorial, so it's loading our dialog based on the sample dialog set. So we can see here, we have our dialog ID and we have all of our scripts. So this will be where you will be modifying, most likely modifying the scripts for the demo. Initially, when you import it, it'll look a little bit different. These are the customs, or I guess the modifications that I've made to this dialog data set for our unique cutscene. But here we have the dialog ID, which is going to be the same ID that you utilize for the start dialog keyword. And then we also have the script ID, which is going to be the unique identifier for each line of script for our dialog sequence. We have the portrait RUID, which will be the RUID image of the portrait that should go in when you have the dialog conversation. And then the character name, which will be displayed on the character name kind of field there. And then finally, we also have the character script. Sorry, not finally. We also have the character script, which will be the script that displays in the dialog window. And we also have the selection script. So this will be what shows up inside of the, for the user to select to progress the dialogue. But notice in our third dialogue sequence here, we have this kind of vertical bracket here, or vertical bar. This will allow us to split our dialogue depending on what dialogue choice you've made. So if we've selected this first dialogue choice, we'll separate this by the vertical bar with the second dialogue choice, which is poke. And these asterisks simply just highlight it in blue. So you can highlight certain text using these asterisks. And then similarly, we have our selection scripts associated with our different selections. So if we choose the first option, leave the sort alone, then we will navigate, or I guess we'll jump to T4. And if we select the second one, poke, then it will go to our second script here. So last things is we have this keyword at Nick, which is just going to be the character name, so the player name that will be displayed. So if you utilize this keyword, you can utilize this in your code as well. So we can see here, don't touch that at Nick, and this will be replaced by the character nickname. We also have asterisks around this to highlight this into a different color. Okay, so that is everything with the dialogue set. Once you modify this, then when you start this tutorial sequence, it will begin this specific dialogue. So I believe if I press play now, and I press 1, it starts this dialogue sequence on my keyboard. So I don't have to go through my own custom cutscene sequence. It just kind of starts this cutscene sequence for me. And you can, of course, create more of these. So you can create other dialogue sequences, and you can just simply change the start dialogue keyword here to start a different dialogue sequence. Just make sure you have the dialogue IDs properly set up, and then all of the selection scripts actually go somewhere. So follow kind of the chain to make sure it actually has a resolution and is actually going where you intend it to go. The final thing with this package is that we have the parent UI path. So by default, it will kind of automatically create our dialogue objects so that you don't have to spawn them in yourself. So you don't even have to go in and touch the UI at all. It will automatically be spawned on begin play. So this will be determining the UI path for our dialogue. So here we're getting the parent, and then when we spawn the dialogue, it will be spawned into the parent that we designate here. So by default, it will be spawned in this default group, but if you wanted to go to a different path, if you wanted to go to like your own custom UI group, then you can change that as well. Okay, so that is the basis of the dialog logic package itself. It's very easy to utilize, and again, right out of the box, it's meant to just work right away. So you can just test it, see how it works, and then you can begin using it. You can make your own scripts. You can modify the script however you want to utilize it. We also, I want to remind you to when you import any package from our GitHub repository, to read through the README file to make sure you're not missing anything, because there are certain setups that you have to do with certain packages to make sure that it works. Okay, so with that being said, what did we do to modify and get our cutscene system working utilizing this dialog package? So we saw earlier that we can just trigger the dialog package right away with this built-in function that allows us to start the dialog sequence. But how do we get our cutscene system running? Okay, so from here, let's go into our own scripts for our cutscene system that utilizes our dialog package. So I have my own folder here, and I've kind of split it into a similar structure as the other packages. But let's go into some of the core scripts here. So we have our cutscene system here. So in our cutscene system, that's actually for your eyes. I'm going to open this in VS Code to save your eyeballs a little bit. But okay, so we have our on begin play, and we have our active bubble. So if we're in a multiplayer instance, we are going to spawn this bubble here to show that someone is currently in the middle of a dialogue. So to make sure that if somebody is currently in the middle of a dialogue, to show that this person is in a dialogue, we have kind of a track of how many bubbles are currently activated, and then we can, so that we can deactivate them, activate and deactivate them, and keep track of those. We'll go into the bubble stuff a little later. I want to go into the core system first. But to trigger our cutscene, we have at the very bottom here, we have our handle key down, which is a basic or a built-in event from the input that comes from the input service. So when a player presses a key, F in our case, we're going to begin our dialog sequence. So we're going to pass in the dialog sequence to begin, which will be the name of the file to load, dialog sequence _1. And then we're going to we're also going to pass in the user ID of the player that triggered the dialog, so that we can either show a bubble or hide the other players, so that you're kind of immersed in the cutscene. But if we go into our begin cutscene, we can see that we are loading in the cutscene name, and we're also passing in the trigger player. So we have our load data, which is essentially just using the data service to grab the table. And then we're creating a new cutscene sequence structure. So let's open the cutscene sequence. And this is just a basic kind of, I guess, collection of cutscene items. So we want to add a cutscene item, and our cutscene item is going to manage the data contained within our cutscene. So we have our initialize function, which we are passing in to right here. So we're creating a new sequence of cutscenes, and then we're looping through all of our data rows. And then we're going to create a new item, and we're going to pass in that data row to the cutscene item, and then we're going to add the sequence, or I guess add the cutscene sequence item to the sequence. So inside of our initialize function, we are grabbing the row, and then we're grabbing each row of our data script. So let's actually quickly look into our data file here. We have our dialog sequence. So we have a couple kind of fields here. We have our command, which is going to be the function that we call for our I guess, sequence item. So we have our cutscene behaviors file here. So our cutscene behaviors, we have a function associated with each of the different cutscene behavior tags here. So depending on what the cutscene behavior is, we can simply just add, add the name of our sequence, and just run, and it'll run the corresponding behavior in our logic file. And we'll go over this in just a bit, but we have disable player. So we have our command, sorry, before I go into that, we have our command column, we have our target column, which is going to be the target of the corresponding command. So if it's the local player, it'll be the trigger of the cutscene. So whoever triggered the cutscene, this will be the target. So if we're calling show bubble, which is the dialog bubble, we're going to show the bubble on the local player. As opposed to down here, we can see a different target ID here. So we have the model ID, and we are calling show bubble. So we have different targets for our command as well. We also have our parameters, and we have kind of a special way to organize our parameters here. We are utilizing the string to table, and I'll go into that function in just a bit. But basically, it allows us to convert a string into a table format. So if we input this string, and we have a parser here where we will parse this string into a format that is accepted by the string to table helper function. But for now, we are actually, let me open this in Excel. It might be a little bit easier on your eyes to look at. But we have show emote. So actually, let's just go over the params here. We have the name of the name of the variable, which is duration, and the name is of type string. And we have the type of the variable, which is int64, and the value is 3. So this is one variable that is being passed in as a parameter to our show bubble function. Down here in show emote, we have the same format. We have the variable name, and we have the value. We also have a new line function, or sorry, new line keyword that is going to split multiple parameters. So we can pass in multiple parameters into our show emote. And that will be parsed by our loader inside of our cutscene item init function. We'll go into that in just a little bit. Next column, we have the message column, which is just going to be the message. The reason why I separated this out as opposed to kind of grouping that into a param is just because of the potential length of the messages. I don't want to bloat this parameter field down here with a huge string of text. So we have our message split out into a separate column. But not all of the commands will have a message associated with them. The final column we have is the with next column. So this will basically, when our kind of cutscene sequence loops through the various commands, if it sees this with next flag, it will basically run the current command in conjunction with the next command as well. So it won't wait for the current command to finish. It will just move straight on to the next command. So for example, if we want to disable the player and we don't want to wait a certain duration for the player to be disabled at all, we can just have this with next flag so that these two commands get executed together. So the show bubble will have the standard wait, but with the disable player, it will not wait for the player to disable before showing the bubbles. It'll kind of run right away. The show emote, for example, we want to show the show a certain emote. So this will be the dialog emote that we have. We can also have the emote as a bubble type. So if it's, we saw that we have like a kind of a emotion bubble, but if we choose to, we can have this bubble, we can have it as a facial emotion as well. So that's where this this parameter comes in. But I digress, sorry. Yeah, so if we have the show emote, we can run this along with the next command, which is move to position. So it'll show the emote and it'll move to position at the same time. So that's what this with next parameter does. It'll just not wait for the next command and just kind of boom, 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 run all of the commands in a straight sequence without waiting. Okay, so that is everything for our dialog sequence data. So let's go back into the parser here. So we have our cutscene sequence item here. and we have this params field. So we have a variable associated with each of the different columns that we saw earlier. But we have a convert to table field here, which is going to take in our string and then convert that into certain data types. Or I guess convert this string that we saw in our Excel sheet with our bars and our new line, and convert that into a readable format accepted by our string to table. So we're just going to replace all the vertical bars with a tab, and we're going to find all of the new line characters, and we're going to escape the first kind of slash and replace that with an actual new line. And then we're going to convert that. We're going to pass that into string to table, and then that's just going to give us our table, and we're going to return that table, and that is going to be the final params. We have another parsing kind of thing here is if the field is true, if we have a true field in our with next column, and we're going to assign our with next Boolean property as true, otherwise it'll be false. Okay, so with that, that is going to generate our various cutscene, add all of our cutscene sequence into our cutscene sequence data, and then it's going to grab that and it's going to begin our cutscene sequence. So we have our sequence in progress flag here, which will prevent people from spamming the cutscene. If someone presses F too quickly, we don't want two cutscenes running at the same time and mess up our code. So if it's already running, we don't want it to run again. So that's what this flag is for. And then we are going to loop through each of our cutscenes. So here we have a kind of a unique kind of system here. We have our start sequence function here as a variable, and our start sequence function is going to call our cutscene behaviors. So here we have our cutscene behaviors, and this is if you gather nothing from this webinar, this is a very cool trick that I want you guys to know about. Is so we have our cutscene behaviors logic file, right? We have our show bubble, we have our show emote, disable player. All these functions are essentially, so this logic file is kind of thought of as kind of a table, right? So you can think of a logic file as a table of data. And if we pass in our command as a string, so we have our command string, where's my Excel? Here, we have our string as a command, disable player, for example. And inside of our cutscene behaviors, if we use it like a table and search for this function as a string keyword, it will return the function. So you can utilize the cutscene behaviors logic file as kind of a table of functions, and we can pull the corresponding function by string. And we can use pcall, which will allow us to basically have a contained environment where we can call a certain function. So if, for example, if a function errors out, we don't want it to halt the execution of our code. So if we accidentally input something wrong, we spelled the function name wrong, something like that, then instead of causing a standard error log and halting the execution of our code, it will instead kind of do a catch. So if the success is false, so if this pcall is successful, it will return true. If it's not successful, it will return false. So we have success equals false, and we're going to log out the error code, or I guess the error stack trace for our function. So this will allow us to call our function and not worry about kind of errors executing or errors halting our code execution. Okay, and with that, we also have our various arguments. So the first argument is going to be the target object. So we have the function that we're grabbing, but we also have to pass in the object that we're going to call this function from. So we're calling this command function from our cutscenes behavior logic type. So we're also passing in the cutscene behaviors type, and then we're finally passing in our parameters. So all of our cutscene behaviors has the same essential kind of parameters. So we have our cutscene item, and we have our we just have our cutscene item, which is going to contain all of the data. So in our cutscene system, we're just going to pass in our sequence. Okay, and then finally we have our sequence timer that we are basically going to be waiting for our current sequence to complete. And then this is going to kind of, not really recursively, but it's just going to kind of bounce back and forth between our start sequence and our get next sequence, where it will continue to wait for our sequence to complete before it will start the next sequence. So it'll increase our index as long as it's less than our count, so which is the number of items in our sequence. And if it's less than that, then we're going to call the sequence, and it's just going to keep going back and forth. And if it does, then we're going to call this initializer. So so we've now we're initializing our sequence, and we're going to call show other clients. So this is going to this is a client-side function where we're basically going to hide all of the other players in our cutscene. So when the cutscene runs, we're going to hide all of the other players, and so that we just have that one player that triggered the cutscene kind of focusing in on the cutscene itself. So we'll demo that in just a bit as we kind of close out. But once we have our other clients hidden, then we're going to broadcast show client. So this will basically just show the bubble for the player, for all the players but the player that is not. So we're going to show the bubble for all of the other clients except the target entity. So we're going to call show bubble for the triggered player. And without going into too much detail here, we're essentially just kind of playing the bubble effect to show that the bubble is currently in progress. Then when the cutscene sequence is complete, then we're going to set it to false. So we are enabling the bubble, and we're going to disable the bubble. So here, enable the bubble. Enable the bubble when the sequence is complete. We're going to disable the bubble there. And that is basically the entire system. This will be kind of uploaded and recorded. So if I went too fast in some of the stuff, feel free to kind of stop and take a look in detail of some of our functions here. But we have just a few minutes left. So let's show off the multiplayer instance here of what happens one more time. So where's my second instance here? There it is. Okay, so we have two players here. And now watch what happens for each client as I start the sequence. If I press F on this client, then the other client disappears. But for the other client, we can see that a dialog bubble appears. And we can see that that client is currently in the middle of a dialogue. But for the trigger, I can stay focused in on the cutscene, because all of the other players have disappeared. So I can kind of stand right here, and you can see that I am nowhere to be found. So I'm going to stand maybe right there so you can see, but I still am not visible. And then once the cutscene is fully complete, then we can see the other players pop back in, and the dialog bubble disappears from the other client. Okay, so we have a cutscene trigger. So let me quickly wrap up with this. We have a cutscene trigger component here. And I've disabled this here, but this basically allows us to have kind of components attached to our trigger object. So instead of having a global button that you press and you can activate at any time, you can instead have a trigger where if it enters into the range of this trigger, so we have our trigger component here, and we have our collider, and we can show the range of the trigger. But when it enters into this trigger range, we're going to show the UI interaction object, which is just going to be this F to interact UI button at the position of our UI, or sorry, at the position of our target entity. When it exits, it's going to hide. Then if we press F, as long as it's possible to trigger. So we have a Boolean here, can trigger. If you enter the range, it's true. If you exit, it should be false. So, and then you will be able to trigger the cutscene. And that will simply just call begin cutscene, pass in the cutscene name, and then pass in the trigger. So what this will allow us to do is, let's say, at the end of our cutscene, we want our sword to be destroyed, for example, or if we want to instantiate a different object or change the state of our game a little bit so that our current player can trigger another cutscene sequence, then we can instantiate another object with a different cutscene trigger, with a different cutscene name, so that we can have a different file associated with this artifact, and we can have kind of like a continuous chain of dialogue sequences. Yeah, so we can have our appear function, for example, have this another model with a different cutscene trigger, and that will start its own cutscene. So we can have a kind of like a continuing chain of cutscenes. And that's it for me. I wanted to go over the cutscene behaviors in a little bit more detail, but I don't believe I will have time for that today. But maybe in the future, or possibly, I might be sharing this code file. So I apologize I couldn't go over the specifics of each function, but I did want to kind of at least show that you can call a function kind of through a table by utilizing the cutscene behavior logic file as a table and calling by name. And that's it. With that, I will pass it back to Cabby to close out our stream for today.
Hello. Thank you, John. Oh, if you want to check out the MapleStory World's GitHub, just drop !GitHub into the chat for the link. Now, before we end the stream, some housekeeping. Let me look at my notes real quick. For all you creators out there who watched today's stream, we'd love for you to fill out a survey so you can know what other creator, so we can know what other creator focused live stream content you'd like to see in the future. Help us help you. For the link, drop !survey into the chat. We'll also be posting the link to the survey in the MapleStory World's Discord. What else? Lastly, our next live stream will be on June 24th, which is a Tuesday at 11 a.m. PDT, aka Los Angeles time. So 1 week from now, for that live stream, we'll be announcing the 90-day Creator Challenge winners and looking at the most recent updates to our Creator Circle worlds, which are Everil, Maple Survivor, and Marble Quest. And I think that is it for me and the Maple Story Worlds live stream. Thank you everybody for joining me and for joining John. And that is it. Bye, friends.